It was raining hard. People stood around a fresh grave, all wearing black clothes. They had just buried Ethan Ward. One woman looked nervous. She asked, "Why did they close the coffin so quickly?" Suddenly, everyone heard a soft sound from under the ground. Thump. Everyone went silent. It sounded like someone knocked from inside the coffin. Inside the coffin, everything was dark. Ethan's eyes opened suddenly. He was still alive. He tried to move, but there was no space. Wood was all around him. He started breathing fast. His hands touched the top of the coffin. He scratched it with his nails. Then he whispered, "I'm not dead. Someone help me." But no one could hear him. It was late at night. The sky was dark, and the clouds covered the moon. There were no stars. The graveyard was silent. No birds. No wind. Just stillness. An old man named George worked as the night watchman. He wore a thick coat, gloves, and a small flashlight in his hand. His boots made soft sounds on the wet ground as he walked past the graves. He yawned. He had been working at this graveyard for 20 years. But something about tonight felt different. Strange. Cold. Not just on his skin, but in his bones. As he walked, his light moved across the gravestones. Some were broken. Some were new. Then he passed a fresh grave. It was Ethan Ward's grave. The soil was still soft. The flowers were still fresh. There was no headstone yet, just a small wooden marker with Ethan's name. George stopped and looked at it. He remembered the funeral. It happened just a few hours ago. He had seen the family crying. He had helped carry the coffin. He shook his head. "Too young," he muttered. "Only 30. What a shame." Suddenly, he heard something. It was quiet, very quiet, but it came from under the ground. George froze. He turned off his flashlight to listen better. At first, there was nothing. Then, MMPHH. MMPHH. It sounded like someone was screaming, but their mouth was covered. The sound was weak, muffled, and desperate. It was coming from Ethan's grave. George's heart began to race. He stepped back, eyes wide. He looked around, hoping someone else heard it too. But the graveyard was empty. Again. MMPHH. MMPHH. Now it was louder. George dropped his flashlight. The light flickered on the ground. He whispered, "No, it can't be. He's dead. I saw the body." He took a step closer to the grave. Then the sound stopped. Total silence. George waited. 1 second. 2. Suddenly. Thump. The ground moved. A small bump rose up in the center of the grave, like someone was pushing from inside. The soil cracked slightly. George gasped and fell to his knees, grabbing the flashlight. He pointed it at the grave. Nothing moved now. But then he heard it. Very soft, almost a whisper. "Help me." It was Ethan's voice. George dropped the flashlight again and ran. He didn't look back. He ran past every grave, out the gate, and into the street. Behind him, the wind started to blow. Leaves flew across the graves. Trees shook. And from Ethan's grave, a soft whisper came again. "Don't leave me here." It was a cold morning at the city hospital. The long white hallway was quiet. Fluorescent lights flickered above. The smell of medicine and cleaning chemicals filled the air. Inside room 207, Ethan Ward lay still on a metal bed. His skin was pale. His lips were slightly blue. He wasn't moving. 3 people stood around him. Dr. Carson, the head physician. Nurse Lily, young and kind. Dr. Grant, a junior doctor. Dr. Carson looked at his watch. He then placed 2 fingers on Ethan's neck to feel for a pulse. Nothing. He checked the monitor. Flat line. No heartbeat. No brain activity. Dr. Carson sighed. "Time of death, 4:32 a.m., he said calmly. Dr. Grant began writing the report. Nurse Lily, however, looked worried. She had been watching Ethan all night. Something didn't feel right. "Doctor," Lily said softly. "Can you check again?" Dr. Carson turned to her. "There's no pulse, nurse. He's gone." "But just 5 minutes ago, I saw his fingers move," she said. "I thought it was a twitch, but his hand shifted." Dr. Grant laughed lightly. "Sometimes muscles move after death. It's normal." Lily didn't smile. She looked at Ethan again. His eyes were shut, but were they twitching? No, she thought. Maybe I imagined it. Dr. Carson zipped the body bag slowly over Ethan. You did your job well, nurse. But he's gone. Let's inform the family. They left the room. But inside the body bag, Ethan's fingers moved again. His chest rose, just slightly. His lips opened. His voice was weak, dry, like wind scraping across glass. He whispered, "No, I'm still here." No one heard him. 1 hour later, the body was moved to the cold room in the basement. It was dark down there. Rows of steel drawers held the dead. Ethan was slid into one of them. The metal door shut with a loud clang. Inside the drawer his breath returned. Shallow. Fast. His eyes opened. It was pitch black. He couldn't move. His arms were tight against his sides. His head hit cold steel above him. He began to panic. He tried to scream, but his throat was too dry. Only a choking sound came out. He tried to kick, but there was no space. "Let me out," he tried to yell, but it came out like a whisper. His heart beat fast. He was not dead. He was buried alive in steel. It was the night before Ethan's funeral. The hospital had already signed the papers. His body was picked up by the funeral home at 9:45 p.m. The funeral was set for the next morning. The workers at the funeral home were tired. Only one man was on the night shift, Paul, a young assistant. He had only worked there for 2 weeks. Paul pushed the metal trolley slowly down a long hallway. On the trolley was Ethan's body, zipped up in a black bag. He was taking him to the viewing room, where the coffin waited. Paul hummed a tune quietly. He didn't like being alone at night. The place was too quiet, too cold. He reached the small room where the coffin stood. It was open, shiny and dark brown. He stopped the trolley next to it. Paul unzipped the bag halfway to check the body. He didn't want to, but it was part of his job. Ethan's face looked peaceful. Too peaceful. Paul stared for a second longer. Then, Ethan's lips moved. Just a little. Paul blinked. "No way," he whispered. He leaned in closer. Silence. Maybe he was just imagining things. Maybe it was just the light. He looked at Ethan's hands. Something caught his eye. The fingers were slightly curled now. They weren't like that before. Paul quickly zipped the bag back up. His heart started to beat faster. Suddenly, scratch, scratch. A soft sound came from inside the bag. Paul stepped back. He stared at it. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It was coming from inside. He held his breath. His hands started to shake. Then a whisper. Very soft, but very real. "Please. I'm not dead." Paul's eyes went wide. He turned and ran out of the room. He burst into the front office where the manager, Mr. Harlan, was drinking coffee and reading a newspaper. Sir, something's wrong." Paul shouted. "Mr. Harlan looked up slowly. "What now?" "It's the body, Ethan Ward. I heard him speak. He said he's not dead." "Mr. Harlan raised an eyebrow. He put down his coffee. "You're overthinking it," he said. "That happens sometimes. Gas leaves the body. The mouth might move. That's all." "No," Paul said, shaking his head. It was his voice. He whispered. "Mr. Harlan stood up. He walked back to the viewing room with Paul. The bag was quiet now. No sounds. No movement. Mr. Harlan unzipped it halfway and checked Ethan's eyes. He shone a light. "No reaction," he said. Then he pressed a stethoscope to Ethan's chest. He waited. "No heartbeat," he confirmed. "He's gone, Paul. You're just tired." "But, no buts. Close the coffin. We seal it tonight. Family's coming early tomorrow." Paul slowly lifted Ethan's body and placed it inside the coffin. His hands were shaking. He felt like he was helping bury someone alive. As he closed the lid, he looked at Ethan one last time. Ethan's eyes were now slightly open. Just a crack. Looking at him, Paul gasped. He dropped the lid shut, bam, and locked it. Mr. Harlan didn't notice. "Let's get it ready for morning," he said, walking away. Paul stood there for a moment, listening. Inside the coffin, Ethan was crying, but no one would hear him. It was 2:13 a.m. The funeral home was closed. The lights were off. The halls were quiet. The only sound was the soft hum of the security camera system. It recorded everything day and night. There were 6 cameras inside the building. One of them was in the viewing room, the room where Ethan's coffin now rested. That camera's red light blinked slowly. It showed a still image. The closed coffin. A few chairs. A window with the curtain half open. All was silent. But then, the camera began to flicker. A strange static line ran across the screen. It came back. Then glitched again. On the screen, the coffin lid suddenly moved. Just a little. The lid rose slightly then settled. Static again. The camera switched to black and white for a few seconds. When the image returned, the coffin was shaking. Just a little at first. Then stronger. Back and forth. No wind. No people. Just movement coming from inside. Then it stopped. In the security office, Marcus, the night technician, sat watching the monitors. He was eating chips and texting on his phone. He wasn't looking at the screen. Suddenly the system beeped. Motion detected, viewing room. Marcus looked up. He frowned. No one should be in there. He clicked on the camera. The image looked normal again. The coffin sat still. He leaned closer. Then he saw it. A dark shadow moved across the wall behind the coffin. It wasn't shaped like a person. It was longer. Thinner. Like arms stretching too far. Like legs bending the wrong way. The shadow moved slowly, like it was crawling along the wall. Marcus leaned back. What the hell? He rewound the footage. Watched it again. Yes, it was real. But where was the shadow coming from? There was no one else in the room. He stared at the screen, frozen. Then, something happened that made his blood turn cold. Ethan's coffin moved again. This time, it jumped slightly. A loud thud hit the wooden floor. Then the coffin lid unlocked itself. The latch turned. Slowly. Click. Marcus's mouth opened in shock. No way, he whispered. The lid moved up. Just a crack. Then stopped. A dark hand slowly reached out from the opening. Fingers long and thin. Covered in dirt. Shaking. Marcus pushed back in his chair. He picked up the phone and called Mr. Harlan, the funeral home manager. It rang. And rang. No answer. On the screen, the hand slid back inside the coffin. The lid closed again. Just like that. As if nothing had happened. Then the camera turned off by itself. Black screen. No power. Every other camera stayed on. Only the viewing room camera was now dead. Marcus sat frozen in his chair. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know if he should go check the room. He didn't want to. After 5 minutes, he got up slowly. He walked to the door and locked it. Then he sat back down and stared at the black screen. From the hallway behind him, a soft voice whispered, "Still alive." Marcus turned quickly. No one was there. But the door to the viewing room was now slightly open. And on the floor in front of it were muddy footprints. It was 3 a.m. Claire Ward, Ethan's older sister, lay asleep in her small apartment. The room was dark. The only light came from the street lamp outside her window. Claire turned in her sleep. Her face looked tense. She was having a nightmare. In her dream, she was standing in a field of dead grass. The sky above her was dark red. Black birds circled silently in the air. In front of her was a grave. Fresh. Newly dug. The wooden marker read, Ethan Ward. Born 1994, died 2025. Claire stepped closer. Suddenly, the ground began to shake. The dirt started to rise, like something was moving underneath. She gasped. A pale hand shot out from the grave, grabbing her ankle. She screamed and tried to pull away. But the hand was strong. It pulled harder, dragging her toward the open hole. The ground split open. From below, Ethan's voice cried out, "You left me, Claire. You left me there." His face appeared pale, dirty, terrified. His eyes were full of pain. Claire cried, "I didn't know. I thought you were dead." He screamed, "I wasn't dead." Suddenly, dozens of hands rose from the ground. They grabbed her arms, her legs, her neck. Ethan's voice whispered, "Now you'll stay with me forever." Claire woke up screaming. She sat up in bed, breathing hard, her chest rising and falling quickly. Her skin was cold with sweat. She looked around her dark room. It was quiet. No sounds. No movement. Just a nightmare, she thought. She wiped her face with her hands. Then she looked down at her ankle. She froze. There was dirt on her skin. Actual vert. As if someone had grabbed her with muddy fingers. Her heart started beating fast. She turned on the bedside lamp. The light flickered once, then stayed on. She looked at the floor. There were muddy footprints, from the window to her bed. Her eyes widened in horror. The window was slightly open. She got out of bed and walked slowly to the window. Outside, the street was empty. But down on the sidewalk, someone was standing. Not moving. Just looking up at her window. Claire whispered, "Ethan?" The figure turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. She closed the window quickly and locked it. Then she grabbed her phone and called the funeral home. It rang 3 times. Then a voice answered. It was the night guard, Marcus. His voice was shaky. Ashelu. Did something happen with Ethan's body? Claire asked. Marcus was silent. Then he whispered. You need to come here. Now. What? Why? He replied, almost crying. Because I don't think your brother is in the coffin anymore. Claire dropped the phone. She sat on the floor, shaking. Tears filled her eyes. She whispered to herself. Oh my God. Ethan's still alive. Behind her, the bedroom mirror began to fog up. Even though the room was cold, a handprint appeared on the glass. Slowly, 3 words wrote themselves on the mirror. Like a finger was drawing them from the inside. Help me, Claire. The next night, Claire sat alone in her car, parked just outside the cemetery. She hadn't slept. Her hands were shaking. Her mind kept repeating the same thought. What if Ethan is still alive down there? The grave was only a few meters away. It had been 2 days since the funeral. But she couldn't stop hearing his voice. She had seen the handprint on her mirror. She had seen the muddy footprints in her room. And the call from the funeral home? That voice still echoed in her ears. I don't think your brother is in the coffin anymore. Claire opened the car door and stepped into the cold night. The grass was wet. The air was still. She walked slowly through the rows of graves. The wind made the trees whisper. Finally, she reached Ethan's grave. The dirt had settled. There were flowers on top, wilted from the sun. Claire dropped to her knees. She placed her hands on the soil. Ethan, she whispered. If you can hear me, please give me a sign. Nothing. Just silence. She sat there for a minute. Then a small sound. Like a tap. She leaned closer. Tap, tap. It was coming from the grave. Claire's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, Oh my God. She looked around. No one was there. She didn't know what to do. Suddenly she saw something. A small piece of wood was sticking out from the dirt. Very small, like a broken piece of a matchstick. Her heart pounding, she grabbed it. It wasn't a stick. It was a piece of coffin wood. Fresh. Splintered. And it was covered in blood. Inside the coffin, Ethan was still alive. Barely. His breathing was weak. His hands were covered in scratches. His nails were broken. He had tried everything. He had screamed. He had kicked. He had begged. But no one came. He lit the last match from the small box in his pocket. His hands shook as the flame came alive. The coffin was so small. The wood above him was covered in scratch marks. But something else was there too. Carvings. Not made by him. Old, deep carvings. He stared. Strange symbols. Shapes like eyes. Circles with crosses through them. They were burned into the wood. Ethan's heart pounded harder. He didn't make those. Suddenly he heard breathing. Not his own. Something was behind his head. He couldn't turn to look. But he felt it. Warm breath on the back of his neck. He froze. Then a voice. You woke me up. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. No, please. The match flame started to die. In its last light, he saw something on the lid above him. A small, black handprint. Too small to be human. The match went out. Total darkness. He screamed. Back above the ground, Claire heard the scream. But it didn't sound like just Ethan. There was something else in the voice. Something deeper. Something not human. She jumped back. The dirt on the grave moved slightly. Just a ripple. Claire stumbled and ran toward her car. As she reached it, her phone buzzed. One new message. From Ethan's number. She opened it. It was just one photo. It showed the inside of the coffin, Ethan's face, and something in the darkness behind him. Two small glowing eyes. Watching. It was 4:21 a.m. Claire hadn't gone home. She was sitting in her car, parked far from the graveyard now, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. Her face was pale. Her body trembled. She kept looking at her phone screen. That picture. The one that came from Ethan's number. It was impossible. It showed Ethan inside the coffin. His face dirty, his mouth open in terror. But behind him, in the shadows, were two small glowing eyes. Watching. Claire hadn't replied. She didn't know what to say. She didn't even know if it was real. She whispered to herself. How can he send a picture? He's buried. Then her phone buzzed again. Another message. She looked down. This one wasn't a photo. It was a voice message. Only 6 seconds long. Her thumb hovered over the play button. She didn't want to hear it. But she needed to. She pressed play. At first only static. Then a whisper. A dry, shaking voice said, Claire, they're here with me. I'm not alone. Then a growl. Not human. Low. Deep. Angry. The message ended. Claire dropped the phone onto the passenger seat. Tears filled her eyes. She was shaking all over. This can't be real, she whispered. He's dead. He's dead. But deep inside, she didn't believe that anymore. She grabbed the phone again and played the message one more time. Same whisper. Same growl. Same fear in Ethan's voice. Suddenly, the car's radio turned on by itself. Full volume. Loud static exploded from the speakers. Claire screamed and covered her ears. She reached out and turned the volume down, but it didn't work. Then the static stopped. A voice came through the speakers. It was Ethan again. But this time it didn't sound like a message. It sounded like he was speaking live. Claire. I can hear you. She froze. Her eyes went wide. Ethan, she whispered. They buried me. I was still breathing. Her voice trembled. Where are you? What do I do? The voice replied. I don't know how long I have. There's something else here. It's angry. It won't let me out. Claire was crying now. I'm coming to get you. I'll dig you out, I swear. But the voice changed. It got deeper. Darker. No longer Ethan. Too late. The radio turned off by itself. Silence filled the car. Then a soft knock. On the driver's side window. Claire turned slowly. No one was there. But outside, in the mist, she saw footprints forming on the road. As if someone invisible was walking toward her. One step at a time. She grabbed her keys, started the car, and drove off fast. The tires screamed. Her heart pounded. Behind her, the footprints continued, appearing on the wet road. Following. That night, she slept in a hotel. She locked the door, closed the windows, left the lights on. At 3:33 a.m., she woke up suddenly. Her phone screen was glowing. One missed call. From Ethan. The next morning, the sky was gray. Rain tapped against the windows of a small church at the edge of town. Inside the quiet building, Father Malcolm sat alone in his office. He was an old man with shaking hands and tired eyes. He held a voice recorder in his lap. He had been silent for 10 minutes. Now he finally pressed the red button. A small beep. The recording began. His voice was weak, but steady. This is Father Joseph Malcolm. I have something to confess. Not to God, but to the world. He looked around nervously. The door was locked. The blinds were shut. He leaned closer to the recorder. The boy they buried, Ethan Ward, was still alive. He paused. His breathing grew heavy. I saw it with my own eyes. The day of the funeral, his chest moved under the cloth. Just once. A small breath. I told the funeral director, but he told me not to speak. His hands trembled. He said the family couldn't handle more pain. Said the hospital already signed the death papers. Said no one would believe me. But I know what I saw. He looked at the crucifix on the wall. Then back to the recorder. That coffin was sealed too fast. There was no final goodbye. No proper blessing. I felt Something was wrong. He rubbed his eyes. But there's more. Something evil was near that boy. I felt it during the last prayer. Cold heavy's watching. I've never felt fear like that in my life. He stood up and began to pace the room. 2 days later, I started hearing whispers at night, saying his name. Ethan, Ethan. Then last night I had a dream. I saw Ethan buried alive. He was screaming, scratching, crying. He looked down at his hands. His nails were dirty, his fingers bleeding. He had been scratching in his sleep. I woke up with soil in my bed. Soil. He stared into the recorder like it could save him. I believe something dark was buried with him. Something not human. Suddenly he stopped speaking. He heard something. A knock. Not at the door. Under the floor. Very soft. But real. He froze. Another knock. Then a whisper. Father. His eyes filled with fear. You heard me and you said nothing. The voice was inside the room, but no one was there. He turned off the recorder quickly. Then the lights flickered. His crucifix fell off the wall with a loud crack. He ran to the door and tried to open it. Locked. Even though he hadn't locked it. Then the floor creaked. He looked down. The wooden boards under his feet started to move. Something was pushing up from below. He stepped back, heart racing. A small nail popped loose from the floor. Then another. Then he heard Ethan's voice again. I begged you. And you walked away. The boards split open. Something black and thin crawled through the cracks. It looked like a hand, but too long. Too sharp. Father Malcolm screamed. An hour later, the church was empty. The door stood wide open. But Father Malcolm was gone. Only the recorder was left behind. Still running. The last thing it recorded was a whisper. You buried me and now I bury you. Claire didn't sleep again. After the missed call from Ethan at 3:33 a.m., she sat on the hotel bed the entire night. Her eyes were wide. Her hands cold. She held her phone tightly and kept checking it again and again. No new message. No new call. But she knew what she had to do. She had to dig him out. At 6 a.m., the sky was still dark. Rain had stopped, but the ground was wet. She drove back to the graveyard, her tires slipping on the mud. When she arrived, the graveyard was quiet. Too quiet. She looked around. No people. No birds. Even the wind felt like it had stopped. She parked near the trees, far from the gate, and got out with a shovel in her hands. She wore a black hoodie, gloves, and boots. Her face was pale, but her eyes were full of fire. I'm coming, Ethan, she whispered. She walked to his grave. Plot 19. The fresh dirt was still soft. It hadn't rained hard enough to pack it down yet. She put the shovel into the earth and started digging. One scoop. Then another. And another. Minutes turned to an hour. Her arms ached. Her clothes were dirty. But she didn't stop. With each scoop of dirt, her fear got stronger. But her love for Ethan was stronger than fear. Then a sound. Not from her. From under the ground. She stopped and listened. A muffled scream. Claire. It was him. Her heart stopped. She dropped the shovel and fell to her knees. She shouted. I'm here. Hold on. She dug faster with her hands now. Dirt filled her gloves. Her nails cracked. Then her fingers hit wood. The top of the coffin. She wiped the dirt off the surface. There, burned into the wood, was Ethan's name. Tears filled her eyes. She pulled out a small crowbar from her backpack. Please be alive, please, she whispered. She pushed the tool into the side of the lid. The wood creaked. She pushed harder. It cracked. She lifted the lid halfway. Inside. She gasped. Ethan was there. Alive. Eyes wide open. Face pale. But something was very wrong. His mouth was open but no sound came out. His body was shaking. His eyes stared straight up, past Claire. She looked behind her. Nothing there. She looked back at Ethan. He mouthed a word without speaking. Run. Claire leaned closer. What? What is it? Ethan's hand reached out and grabbed her wrist with all his strength. His voice finally came out. It followed me back. Suddenly, the sky turned black. The wind screamed. Gravestones cracked. Trees bent like they were about to snap. Claire tried to pull Ethan out of the coffin. but something pulled him back in. A black shadow. Long arms. No face. Smoke instead of skin. Claire screamed. She grabbed Ethan's arm and pulled harder. No. I won't lose you again. The shadow let go. Ethan fell into her arms. He was breathing fast. Crying. They both ran. Behind them, the coffin exploded with black smoke. The shadow rose up like a storm cloud. And from inside the smoke, a whisper. You stole what belongs to me. Claire pushed Ethan into the passenger seat and slammed the door shut. Her hands were shaking as she ran to the driver's side. She jumped in, started the engine, and hit the gas. The car's tires spun in the mud for a second, then caught hold. They sped away from the graveyard. The rain started again. Harder this time. Lightning flashed above the trees. Thunder shook the sky. Ethan was breathing fast, his eyes wide with fear. He looked at Claire and whispered, "It's not over." Claire's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't stop. She gripped the wheel tighter. "We're getting help, okay? I got you out. You're safe now." But Ethan didn't look convinced. He kept looking at the rearview mirror. Back at the road. It followed us. Claire glanced in the mirror. At first nothing. Just darkness and falling rain. Then something moved. A black shape. Running on all fours like an animal. Too fast. Too big. Claire pressed her foot down harder. The car sped up. The shadow moved faster too. Ethan clutched the side of the seat. "It doesn't want me to leave. I was supposed to stay buried." Claire shouted. "What is it? A ghost?" Ethan shook his head. "It's something older. Something that waits under the ground. And now it wants you too." Suddenly. Bang. Something hit the back of the car. The whole vehicle shook. Claire screamed, swerving left. They nearly hit a tree. She straightened the car and kept going. Rain hit the windshield so hard, it sounded like rocks. Then the radio turned on by itself. Static. Then a voice. Ethan's voice. Screaming. Crying. "Please don't bury me. Please." Claire looked at Ethan. He wasn't speaking. The voice was coming from the car. Then another voice came through, cold and low. "You open the box. Now you belong to the dark." Claire reached out and smashed the radio with her fist. Silence. The road ahead curved sharply. She turned the wheel. Too fast. The car spun out of control. Tires screeched. They slid sideways into the trees. Crash. Everything went black. Moment laté. Claire opened her eyes slowly. Her head hurt. Blood on her forehead. The windshield was cracked. The engine had died. Ethan. She looked beside her. The seat was empty. Ethan? She looked around. The door on his side was open. Rain poured in. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stumbled out into the woods. Dark trees surrounded her. No sign of Ethan. Just silence. Then whispers. From every direction. "He's ours now. You brought him back. Now you will stay too." She spun around, holding her phone like a weapon. The flashlight was on but weak. Then she saw footprints in the mud. Bare feet. Ethan's. She followed them through the trees. Her legs hurt. Her heart pounded. But she kept going. The prints led to a large tree with deep roots. At the base, an open hole. Not natural. It looked like a tunnel. Inside, it was completely dark. But she heard it. Ethan's voice. "Claire, help me." She stepped closer. The roots moved. Something inside was waiting. She looked down the tunnel and whispered, "I'm not leaving without you." And then she stepped inside. Claire stepped into the hole beneath the tree. It was cold. Damp. The air smelled like old dirt and death. She held her phone out in front of her. The flashlight shook in her hand. Its weak beam lit only a few feet ahead. Roots hung from the ceiling like fingers. The walls were tight, made of wet soil and stone. She had to crouch as she walked. The tunnel seemed to go on forever. "Ethan," she whispered. No answer. Only the sound of her own breathing. She took another step. Her foot sank slightly into the mud. Something squished beneath her shoe. She looked down. A torn piece of cloth. She picked it up. It was from Ethan's shirt. Claire's heart pounded harder. She was close. She kept going. The whispers returned. Soft at first. Then louder. Claire. You brought him back. Now you must stay too. She pressed her hands to her ears. Shut up, she screamed. Suddenly, the flashlight flickered. Once. Twice. Then darkness. Her phone died. Click. Silence. She stood there in the pitch-black tunnel, unable to see her hands. Then, a hand grabbed her ankle. She screamed and kicked. The hand let go. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her small lighter, and lit it. A tiny flame appeared. It showed the tunnel again, barely. In front of her, the path split into two tunnels. Left or right? She listened. From the left tunnel, silence. From the right tunnel, a soft cry. Claire. Ethan's voice. She took the right tunnel. The path grew smaller. Tighter. The walls closed in. She crawled now, the lighter shaking in her hand. Her breath was short. Her knees hurt. Then she saw it. A dim, greenish glow at the end of the tunnel. She crawled toward it. The tunnel opened into a round chamber deep underground. Roots covered the ceiling. The floor was covered in bones, some old, some new. And in the center, Ethan, tied in roots. His arms and legs wrapped tight. His face pale. Eyes wide. He saw Claire and shook his head. No, it's here. Claire ran to him. She tried to pull the roots off, but they were too strong. Don't talk. I've got you, she said. But then, the roots moved on their own. Tightened. Lifted Ethan off the ground. He screamed. Claire tried to hold him, but the roots pulled her back. She fell. The lighter dropped and went out. Darkness. Then, the sound of breathing. Not hers. Something was in the room with them. She couldn't see it. Only hear it. It whispered into her ear. You took him from the earth. The earth takes him back. Gleidestoutid. No. He doesn't belong to you. Suddenly, the roots dropped Ethan. He fell to the ground, coughing. The green glow returned. Claire grabbed his hand. They ran. Back through the tunnel. Back the way she came. The whispers followed. The air grew thick. The walls trembled. But they kept going. One tunnel. Then another. Then finally the opening. Claire pushed Ethan out first, then pulled herself out of the hole. They lay on the wet grass, breathing hard. The wind howled around them. Behind them, the tree cracked. The hole closed with a loud, wet sound. Silence returned. For now. Ethan looked at Claire. Thank you. Claire looked back at him. We're not safe yet. Ethan and Claire sat in the wet grass, breathing hard. The rain had stopped, but everything was still cold and quiet. Claire looked at the tree behind them. The hole in the roots was gone, like it had never been there. But something still felt wrong. She turned to Ethan. His face was pale. His eyes were half closed. He was shaking. Ethan, we need to get help, she whispered. Ethan didn't answer. He just stared at his hands. Slowly, he pulled up the sleeve of his shirt. Claire leaned in. Her heart stopped. There was something carved into his skin. Not with a knife, but like the skin had grown into shapes. Letters. Old letters. They moved slightly, like they were alive. What is that? Claire asked, voice shaking. Ethan looked at her. It's a mark. From down there. It followed me. Claire reached out to touch it, but Ethan pulled away. Don't. It burns when someone else touches it. She nodded. We need to go to a hospital. Ethan laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. No doctor can fix this, Claire. Claire stood up. Then we find someone who can. A priest. A psychic. Anyone. Ethan stayed on the ground, staring at the trees. You don't hear it, do you? Hear what? He looked at her with tired, scared eyes. The whispering. Claire listened. There was nothing but wind. She helped him stand. They started walking back to the car wreck through the forest. As they walked, Ethan kept looking over his shoulder. Every few steps. Claire noticed. You think it's still following us? Ethan nodded slowly. It doesn't let go. Once it touches you, it leaves something inside. A piece of itself. Claire's face turned pale. What do you mean? Ethan took a deep breath. It put me back together down there. I think I died in that box. For a moment. But it brought me back. And now. He opened his hand. Inside was dirt. Wet, black dirt. It's still in me. Claire took a step back. But then she stopped herself. She shook her head and walked closer. I don't care what's inside you. You're my brother. I'm not letting it take you again. Ethan smiled. Just a little. Then you need to be ready. Because it's going to try. They reached the road. The crashed car was still there. The front was smashed, but the back seat was okay. Claire opened the door and helped Ethan inside. She looked at the sky. The clouds were thick. The moon was hidden. But something else moved up there, just behind the clouds. A shadow. Watching. She looked back down. She got in the driver's seat. We'll go to that old church in the next town. I remember reading something about strange things there. Maybe someone can help us. Ethan nodded, closing his eyes. As Claire started the car, the radio turned on again. This time it didn't play a voice. It played a heartbeat. Slow. Heavy. Claire stared at the radio. Then it stopped. Silence again. She looked at Ethan. He was sleeping now. But his hand was moving slightly. His fingers digging into the seat like they were looking for dirt. Claire didn't say anything. She just drove faster. Claire drove fast. The tires splashed through puddles on the broken road. The town lights were still far away, hidden behind the thick trees. Ethan sat in the back seat silent. He looked asleep, but his fingers still twitched. Sometimes they scratched at the door like claws. Claire looked at him through the mirror. Hold on, Ethan. We're almost there. But deep down she was scared. He hadn't spoken since the mark appeared. The strange whisper she once thought was wind. Now she heard it too. He belongs to the soil. You took him from the roots. Her hands gripped the wheel tighter. Suddenly the headlights flickered. The car slowed. Claire pressed the gas. Nothing. The engine died. The radio clicked on. Static. Then. Claire. A voice. Not Ethan's. Something else. She turned the key again. The engine didn't start. Claire banged her fist on the wheel. Not now. Then Ethan spoke. Softly. We're already back. Claire turned. What? He pointed out the window. Claire looked, and her blood ran cold. They weren't near the church. They were in front of the same tree. The one with the twisted roots. The one that had taken Ethan. No, we left this place, she shouted. She opened the door and stepped out. The night was colder here. The ground was wet again. The tree looked bigger than before. Its roots moved slowly like snakes. Claire ran to Ethan's door and opened it. Get out. We're not going back there. But Ethan didn't move. His eyes were open now, completely black. His voice was not his own. You brought me back, Claire, but something else came too. Claire stepped back. I saved you. Ethan got out slowly. His movements were stiff. Like a puppet. He walked toward the tree. The roots opened. Waiting. Claire cried out. Fight it, Ethan. Don't let it take you. Ethan turned his head slightly. For one moment, just one, his real eyes came back. Tears in them. I'm sorry, Claire. And then he stepped into the roots. They wrapped around him. Pulled him down. Claire ran to grab his hand. But it was too late. Only his voice remained. Claire. 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 The whisper circled her like wind. The tree roots closed. The ground became still. Claire fell to her knees. Tears ran down her face. She was alone. Again. And then, from behind her, a soft sound. Scratch. 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 She turned. The dirt beside the tree moved. A hand pushed out. Not Ethan's. Another one. Then another. More hands. They were crawling out. Not alive. Not fully dead. All with marks on their skin. All whispering. She heard him scream. She woke us too. Now she belongs to the earth. Claire screamed and ran. But the forest had changed. There was no road now. Only trees. Only fog. Only whispering. And behind her, footsteps. Slow. Vet. Getting closer. Claire ran faster. Branches hit her face. Her breath came in gasps. And still, whispers. Louder. Closer. She stumbled. Fell. When she looked up, she saw a shallow grave. Already dug. With a wooden box inside. The lid opened slowly. Empty. Waiting. A voice spoke in her ear. He was buried alive. Now it's your turn. A still image of the forest. Fog. A tree with roots that move slowly. A soft scream in the distance. Then silence. Forever.